My name is Iris Thompson. I'm 58 years old, and I thought I understood what family meant. I was sitting at my son's Christmas dinner table surrounded by twinkling lights and the smell of roasted turkey when he asked me a question that would unravel 3 years of lies. "Mom, did you like the car I gave you last month?" Brian smiled at me, his eyes warm with expectation. I froze my fork halfway to my mouth. "What car, honey?" The silence that followed was deafening. My son's face went from confusion to shock as he slowly turned to look at his wife Sophia, who had gone completely pale. Before I continue, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe, because what I discovered next tore my family apart before bringing us back together in the most unexpected way. Let me take you back to understand how we got here. My son Brian is 32 years old now, the CEO of a successful technology company in Seattle. But he wasn't always living in a mansion with a 6-figure salary. Brian became my whole world when my husband passed away from a sudden heart attack. Brian was only 8 years old then, and I was 34. Suddenly a widow with a young boy who needed me. I worked 2 jobs to give Brian the life he deserved. During the day, I was a nurse at Portland General Hospital, and 3 nights a week I worked the evening shift at a local diner. I remember those years like they were yesterday. I'd come home at 11 at night, my feet aching, my back sore, and find Brian asleep at the kitchen table, his homework half finished beside him. I'd wake him gently, help him complete his math problems or read through his book reports, then tuck him into bed before collapsing into my own. But watching Brian grow into a brilliant, kind young man made every sacrifice worth it. He studied hard, earned a full scholarship to Harvard, and graduated at the top of his class. When he started his company 5 years ago, I cried tears of joy. My baby had made it. He had built the life I had always dreamed he would have. 4 years ago, Brian met Sophia at a charity gala in Seattle. She was 29, then elegant, with long brown hair and a smile that seemed perfect for photographs. She came from a comfortable family, though not nearly as wealthy as Brian had become. She worked in marketing when they first met, though. After their wedding, she told Brian she wanted to focus on managing their home. I'll be honest, from the first time I met Sophia, something felt off. She was polite, certainly. She said all the right things. But there was a coldness in her eyes when she looked at me, a distance I couldn't quite explain. She always called me Mrs. Thompson, even after I asked her multiple times to call me Iris or even Mom. "Of course, Mrs. Thompson," she'd say with that practiced smile, and then continue calling me Mrs. Thompson the next time we spoke. Over the 4 years of their marriage, I saw my son less and less. Sophia was always the one answering when I called. "Brian's in a meeting. He's traveling for work. He's resting, I'll have him call you back." Sometimes he would call back, but often days would pass before I'd hear from him. When I'd ask Brian about visiting, there was always a reason why it wasn't a good time. The house was being renovated. They were about to travel. Sophia's family was visiting. I told myself I was being sensitive, that maybe I was one of those mothers who couldn't let go. As for my own life, I had retired 3 years ago after 35 years as a nurse. I lived in a small, cozy house in Portland, Oregon, about 3 hours from Seattle by car. My home was modest, but filled with memories. Photographs of Brian growing up covered every surface. The garden out back was my pride and joy, where I grew tomatoes, roses, and herbs every summer. My car was a 2008 Honda Accord that had been reliable for years, but was finally showing its age. It had over 180,000 miles on it. The air conditioning had stopped working that summer, and lately the engine made a concerning rattling sound every time I started it. But I never mentioned these problems to Brian. He had his own life, his own concerns. I didn't want to burden him with my minor inconveniences. My days were simple and full. I volunteered at the hospital twice a week, reading to children in the pediatric ward. Every Friday, I met with my knitting group at the community center. My best friend Margaret, who had been my colleague for 20 years, was part of that group. We'd knit, drink tea, and share stories about our lives. I was content. I had enough money from my pension good friends and the satisfaction of knowing I'd raised a good man. Then 2 weeks before Christmas, everything changed. Brian called me on a Tuesday evening. I was in the kitchen making soup when my phone rang. "Mom!" His voice was excited, almost giddy. "You have to come to Seattle for Christmas this year. I won't take no for an answer." I hesitated. My old car, the long drive, the winter weather with potential snow. "Honey, I don't know if my car can make that trip right now." "Then I'll send a car service to pick you up, Mom. No excuses. Please, I need you here." There was something in his voice, an urgency I hadn't heard before. It's been too long. 2 years is too long. He was right. The last 2 Christmases I had spent alone. The year before, Sophia had told me they were going to Hawaii for the holidays. The year before that, she said her family was dealing with illness and they needed to be there. I had understood, or at least I had tried to. But hearing the longing in Brian's voice now, I realized how much I had missed him too. "Sophia is excited too, Mom. She's planning a big dinner," Brian continued. I heard Sophia's voice in the background, though I couldn't make out the words. "See, she can't wait to have you here." I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe that my daughter-in-law wanted me there, that I hadn't been imagining the distance between us. "Okay, sweetheart, I'll come." "That's my girl. I'll arrange everything. Just pack your bags." I spent the next 2 weeks preparing. I knitted a navy blue scarf for Brian. It was his favorite color, and I knew he'd appreciate something made with love rather than bought from a store. For Sophia, I purchased an expensive spa gift set from the nicest shop in Portland, spending more than I probably should have from my fixed income. But she was my son's wife, and I wanted her to feel valued. I also spent an entire evening baking Brian's favorite apple pie using my mother's old recipe. The crust had to be just right flaky, but not too crumbly. Brian had loved this pie since he was a little boy. I could still picture him at age 6, his face covered in cinnamon and sugar, asking for a second slice. On December 23rd, a sleek black limousine arrived at my house. I was shocked. I had expected a regular car service, maybe a town car, but Brian had sent a limousine. The driver, a kind man in his 40s named Robert, helped me with my bags and opened the door for me. As we drove north toward Seattle, I watched the winter landscape pass by my heart full of anticipation. We arrived at Brian's house just as the sun was setting. His home was impressive, a modern 3-story structure with floor-to-ceiling windows and a perfectly manicured lawn. Christmas lights outlined every edge of the house, and a wreath the size of a car tire hung on the front door. It was beautiful, but it didn't feel like home. Not like our small house in Portland where Brian grew up, where we had strung popcorn garlands together and made ornaments from construction paper. Brian rushed out to greet me before I even reached the door. "Mom!" He wrapped me in a tight hug, and for a moment, everything felt right. This was my boy, my son, and he was happy to see me. "I've missed you so much." "I've missed you too, sweetheart." Sophia appeared in the doorway. She wore a cream-colored cashmere sweater and perfectly pressed slacks. Her smile was polite but didn't reach her eyes. "Welcome, Mrs. Thompson. Please come in." That first evening, December 23rd, felt awkward from the start. Brian gave me a tour of the house, showing me the guest room where I'd be staying. It was larger than my entire living room back home, with a king-size bed and an ensuite bathroom with heated floors. Everything was pristine, designer expensive, but something about it felt cold, unlived in. "Make yourself comfortable, Mom. Come down whenever you're ready," Brian said, kissing my cheek before heading back downstairs. I unpacked slowly, hanging my simple dresses in the massive closet, placing my toiletries in the marble bathroom. Then I made my way downstairs to the living room. The Christmas tree stood in the corner, a 12-foot Douglas fir decorated with matching silver and gold ornaments. Not a single handmade decoration, not one paper snowflake or popsicle stick reindeer like the ones Brian used to make. Everything coordinated perfectly, like a display in a department store. Sophia was sitting on the white leather couch, scrolling through her phone. "Would you like some tea, Mrs. Thompson?" she asked, without looking up. "That would be lovely. And please, Sophia, call me Iris. Or Mom, if you're comfortable with that." She glanced up briefly, that same practiced smile crossing her face. "Of course, Iris." But I noticed she still avoided calling me anything at all when she brought the tea a few minutes later. I tried making conversation, asking about her family, about the holidays, about anything that might bridge the gap between us. Her answers were short, distracted. Every few minutes, her phone would buzz, and she'd check it immediately, her fingers flying across the screen. I wasn't interesting enough to hold her attention. Brian was in his home office taking a late conference call with someone in a different time zone. So Sophia and I sat in that beautiful, cold living room, the silence broken only by the ticking of an expensive clock on the mantel and the occasional buzz of her phone. After an hour that felt like 3, I excused myself and went to bed early. Lying in that enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, I wondered why I felt so unwelcome in my own son's home. The next day, Christmas Eve, I woke early. I had always been an early riser, a habit from my nursing days. I thought I might help Sophia prepare the Christmas dinner. Growing up, Christmas Eve had always been about cooking together, the kitchen filled with laughter and the smell of cinnamon and roasting meat. I wanted to recreate that feeling, to connect with my daughter-in-law through the simple act of preparing a meal together. I found Sophia in the kitchen, but she wasn't cooking. She was on her phone again, and the counters were completely clear. "Good morning," I said cheerfully. "What can I help with?" She looked up, seeming almost startled to see me. "Oh, good morning, Mrs. Thompson. There's nothing to do. I've hired a catering service. Everything is handled." My heart sank a little. "Oh, are you sure? I'd love to help. Maybe we could make something together." "That's very kind, but everything is arranged. The caterers will arrive at 4 to set up." She turned back to her phone, the conversation clearly over. I understood that she was busy, that hosting was stressful. But I couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't want me there, didn't want me involved in any part of their life. As the day wore on, guests began arriving for the Christmas Eve gathering. They were mostly Brian's business associates and their spouses, along with a few of Sophia's friends. Everyone was impeccably dressed, holding crystal glasses of wine, discussing stock portfolios and vacation homes in Aspen. I felt completely out of place in my simple green dress from Macy's, the nicest thing I owned, but clearly not nice enough for this crowd. Brian was pulled in every direction, playing the perfect host. He'd catch my eye occasionally and smile apologetically, but he was too busy to spend time with me. I found a corner chair and sat watching the party swirl around me. A woman in her 40s approached me at one point. "You must be Brian's mother," she said warmly. "He talks about you all the time. He's so proud of you." Those words meant more to me than she could know. "Thank you. That's kind of you to say." "No, really. He told us how you raised him alone, how hard you worked. You should be very proud." I was proud. Proud of Brian, proud of what he had accomplished. But sitting there in that corner, I felt invisible. At 7 o'clock, the caterers announced that dinner was ready. We all moved to the dining room, where a long table had been set with china and silver I had never seen before. Candles flickered in tall holders, and the food looked like something from a magazine. I was seated next to Brian, with Sophia directly across from me. The other guests filled the remaining seats. The conversation flowed around me. People talked about their recent trips to Europe, about art auctions and theater premieres in New York. I had nothing to contribute to these conversations. My life was volunteering at the hospital and Friday knitting circles. But I smiled and nodded, trying to be present. Then Brian stood up, clinking his glass with a fork. The room fell silent. "I want to make a toast," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "To my mother." Everyone turned to look at me. I felt my cheeks flush. "Mom, you sacrificed everything for me. You worked 2 jobs so I could go to college. You never complained, never asked for anything in return. You gave me the world, and you did it all alone." His eyes were shining with unshed tears. "You're the reason I'm standing here today. You're the reason I have all of this." I felt my own eyes well up. "Brian, that's what mothers do. I'd do it all again in a heartbeat." He smiled that beautiful smile that lit up his whole face. "And that's exactly why I wanted to do something special for you. Something to show you how much I love you, how grateful I am." He paused, looking around the room at all the watching faces. "Mom, did you like the car I gave you last month?" Time seemed to stop. The car. What car? I stared at my son, completely confused. "What car, honey?" The smile faded from Brian's face. He laughed uncertainly, like he thought I was joking. "The car, Mom. The white Lexus SUV. I had it delivered to your house in November." My confusion must have been written all over my face. "Brian, I didn't receive any car." The room had gone completely silent. Every eye was on us. I could hear someone's fork clatter against their plate. Brian's face shifted from amusement to bewilderment. "What do you mean you didn't receive it? I have the delivery confirmation. I have all the paperwork." "Honey, I promise you I didn't get any car. My Honda is still in my driveway. That's what I've been driving." Brian turned slowly to look at Sophia. In that moment, I saw something flicker across my daughter-in-law's face. Fear, guilt, panic. Her face drained of all color, turning almost gray. "Honey," Brian said, his voice careful and controlled. "You arranged the delivery, right?" Sophia opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Yes, I arranged it." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Maybe there was a delivery error." "A delivery error?" Brian's voice rose slightly. "With a $50,000 car. $50,000. My breath caught. Brian had spent that much money on me. My hands started trembling. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. Sophia stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. "Let me check with the dealership. Maybe they have records of what happened." She practically ran from the room, her heels clicking rapidly across the floor. Brian turned back to me, his face a mixture of confusion and growing anger. "Mom, this doesn't make any sense. I saw the receipt. I saw the delivery confirmation. Sophia showed me everything. She said she watched them deliver it to your house." I tried to keep my voice calm, aware of all the guests watching us. "Maybe there's just been a misunderstanding, honey. These things happen." But even as I said the words, I knew something was very wrong. The look on Sophia's face, the way she had fled the room. That wasn't the reaction of someone dealing with a simple delivery error. That was the reaction of someone who had been caught. The other guests tried to resume their conversations, talking about safe, neutral topics to ease the tension. But the damage was done. The evening's warmth had evaporated, replaced by an uncomfortable chill that had nothing to do with the weather outside. Sophia returned about 10 minutes later. Her face was still pale, her hands shaking slightly. "I'll follow up first thing tomorrow. The dealership is closed for Christmas, obviously." Brian stared at her for a long moment. "Obviously." He repeated, his tone flat. Dinner continued, but the joy was gone. People ate quickly, made their excuses, and left earlier than planned. By 9 o'clock, the house was empty except for Brian, Sophia, and me. I excused myself and went upstairs, claiming exhaustion from the trip. But as I climbed the stairs, I heard their voices from the living room. They were speaking quietly, trying not to be overheard, but the acoustics of the house carried sound. I couldn't make out specific words, but I heard the tone. Brian's voice was angry, demanding. Sophia's was defensive, pleading. I closed the door to my room and sat on the edge of the bed. Where was the car? What had happened to it, and why had Sophia looked so guilty? I didn't sleep much that night. Questions kept circling through my mind. I knew my son. He wouldn't lie about something like this, which meant Sophia had lied. But why? What could she possibly gain from making Brian think he had given me a car? Christmas morning arrived gray and cold. I woke at 6, gave up on sleep, and went downstairs. Brian was already in the kitchen, a mug of coffee in his hands, staring out the window at the frost-covered yard. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept at all. "Mom." He set down his mug and came to hug me. "I'm so sorry about last night. I'm going to figure this out. I promise." "Honey, please don't worry about it. These things happen," I said, though I didn't believe my own words. "No, Mom, they don't just happen. A car doesn't disappear." His jaw was set, determined. "Something is very wrong here, and I'm going to find out what." Sophia appeared in the doorway, already dressed in yoga pants and a sweater. Her eyes were red-rimmed, like she had been crying. She avoided looking at either of us. "I'll call the dealership first thing when they open tomorrow." "You said that last night," Brian replied coldly. The tension was unbearable. I couldn't stand being in the middle of their conflict, couldn't stand feeling like I was the cause of trouble in their marriage. "I think I should go home," I said. "You two need time together. I don't want to be in the way." "No, Mom, absolutely not." Brian's response was immediate and firm. "This is not your fault. You're not going anywhere. This is your Christmas too." But I could see the strain in his eyes, the way his shoulders were tight with stress. "Brian, I love you, but I think it's best. We can celebrate another time." He looked like he wanted to argue, but finally he nodded. "Let me arrange a car for you." Within an hour, I was packed and ready to leave. Brian hugged me tight at the door. "I love you, Mom. I'm going to fix this." "I know you will. I love you too." The drive back to Portland felt longer than 3 hours. I sat in the back of the town car, watching the landscape pass my mind, racing. Something was deeply wrong, and I needed to understand what. I arrived home late Christmas afternoon. My little house felt especially empty. No decorations, no tree. I had been so excited about going to Seattle that I hadn't bothered with my own Christmas preparations. I made myself a cup of tea and sat in my favorite chair by the window. I wasn't a naive woman. I had worked 35 years as a nurse, dealing with all kinds of people. I had seen enough of human nature to recognize when someone was lying. And Sophia had been lying. The question was why and what had really happened to that car. I decided I wasn't going to sit around waiting for answers. I was going to find them myself. The next morning, December 26th, I called Brian. He answered on the first ring, sounding weary. "Hi, Mom." "Honey, I need to ask you something. What was the name of the dealership where you bought the car?" "Prestige Motors, downtown Seattle." "Why?" "I just want to understand what happened. Humor me." "Mom, you don't need to do this. I'm handling it." "I know you are, sweetheart, but I'm curious. It's in my nature." I kept my tone light, casual. He sighed. "Okay, Prestige Motors. Ask for Tom in sales. He's the one who handled everything." After we hung up, I waited until after lunch, when I figured the dealership would be open again after the holiday closure. I dialed the number and asked for Tom. "Tom Henderson speaking. How can I help you?" "Hello, Tom. My name is Iris Thompson. I'm calling about a Lexus SUV that was supposedly delivered in November. Let me pull up the records. One moment, please. I heard typing in the background. Yes, here it is, white Lexus RX 350. Beautiful vehicle. Delivered November 15th. Can you tell me the delivery address? Certainly. 742 Maple Street, Seattle, Washington. My heart started pounding. 742 Maple Street, are you certain? Yes, ma'am. That's the address on the delivery order. That's not my address. There was a pause. Oh, well, this was the address provided by Mrs. Sophia Thompson when she placed the order. And who signed for the delivery? More typing. According to our records, Mrs. Sophia Thompson signed the delivery receipt. I felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. Thank you, Tom. You've been very helpful. I hung up and immediately went to my computer. I typed the address into Google Maps. 742 Maple Street was a large house in an affluent neighborhood of Seattle. But who lived there? I called Margaret. She had worked as a secretary for a law firm for 30 years before retiring and was excellent at finding information. Margaret, I need your help with something. Of course, dear. What's going on? I explained the situation and Margaret was immediately on the case. Give me an hour. She called back in 45 minutes. Iris, I found the property records. 742 Maple Street is registered to a Diane Carter. Who is Diane Carter? That's the interesting part. I did some more digging. Diane Carter, age 62, and Iris, she's listed as Sophia's mother. The world tilted. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Sophia's mother. Yes, I triple-checked. That's Sophia's mother's house. Sophia had taken the car Brian bought for me and given it to her own mother. She had stolen my gift, my son's expression of love, and given it to someone else. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. Iris, are you still there? Yes, Margaret, can you do one more thing? Can you check social media? Diane Carter's accounts. On it. 10 minutes later, my email pinged. Margaret had sent me screenshots. There on Diane Carter's Facebook page was a photo dated November 18th. A woman who looked like an older version of Sophia stood beside a white Lexus SUV beaming at the camera. The caption read, "My wonderful daughter surprised me with this beautiful gift. Blessed, proud mom." I stared at the photo until my eyes burned. It wasn't about the car. I didn't care about having a luxury vehicle. My old Honda was fine. What hurt, what burned in my chest like acid, was the betrayal. Brian had wanted to do something meaningful for me, to show his love and gratitude for all those years of sacrifice. And Sophia had stolen that moment from both of us. She had taken his love and redirected it to her own mother. I needed to know more. This couldn't be the first time. If Sophia had been bold enough to steal a $50,000 car, what else had she taken? I called Brian again. Honey, I need to ask you something else. Have you sent me other gifts over the years? Through Sophia. Of course, Mom. I've sent you something almost every month. Why? My stomach dropped. Every month. Yes. Money for groceries, birthday presents, Mother's Day gifts, care packages. Sophia helped me arrange everything. She said it would be easier if she coordinated it all, made sure you got exactly what you needed. He paused. Mom, are you saying you didn't receive those either? Brian, I haven't received anything. Not money, not packages, nothing except your phone calls. The line went silent for so long, I thought we had been disconnected. Finally, Brian spoke, his voice shaking. That's impossible. I've sent thousands of dollars over the past 3 years. 3 years? Since when exactly? Since Sophia and I got married. She offered to handle making sure you were taken care of. She said she knew how busy I was with the company and she wanted to help. She made it sound so thoughtful. His voice cracked. Oh God, Mom. What has she done? Can you check your records? Tell me exactly what you sent. I heard him moving around typing on his computer. Then he started reading, his voice getting quieter and more strained with each item. Monthly grocery allowance $500 times 36 months. That's $18,000. Birthday gifts. Last year an iPad for $800. The year before a sewing machine for $600. Mother's Day packages. Flowers and spa treatments every year. About $500 each time. Home repairs. Last year I sent $5,000 for roof repairs. Sophia said your roof was leaking. Medical expenses. $3,000 for medications and arthritis treatments. Sophia said you were having trouble with your knees. He went on and on. Christmas gifts. Thanksgiving dinner money. Emergency funds. The total kept climbing. Mom, including the car, I've sent you over $85,000 in the past 3 years. I couldn't speak. $85,000. Money that Brian had earned through his hard work, money he had sent out of love thinking he was caring for his mother. And I had never seen a penny of it. Brian, I didn't receive any of it. My roof is fine. I don't need arthritis medication. I use Medicare for my medical care. My voice was shaking now. Where did all that money go? I think we both know the answer. Brian's voice had gone cold, harder than I had ever heard it. Sophia, my own wife has been stealing from you for 3 years. Over the next 2 days, Brian and I put together the full picture. It was worse than we had imagined. The iPad, I had seen a photo on Sophia's sister's Instagram of her with a new iPad posted last summer. From my amazing sis, the caption had read. The sewing machine Diane Carter had posted about her new hobby, showing off a top-of-the-line sewing machine. My daughter is so generous, she had written. The roof repairs. My roof was perfectly fine. I had checked it myself after Brian told me about the supposed leak. Not a single missing shingle. The medical expenses, a lie. I was in good health, used my Medicare benefits, and hadn't spent more than a few dollars on over-the-counter pain medication. Every single thing had been a fabrication. Every dollar had gone into Sophia's pocket or to her family. She had systematically stolen from Brian under the guise of caring for me. But it was more than just theft. As we talked, I realized something even more insidious. Brian, do you remember the last 2 Christmases when I couldn't come visit? You said you wanted to stay home, that traveling was too hard. I never said that. I was never asked. Sophia told you that. Yes, she said she had called you and you preferred a quiet Christmas at home. Brian, Sophia never called me. I was waiting for an invitation. I spent both Christmases alone thinking you didn't want me there. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. She kept us apart. Brian finally said, his voice barely a whisper. She deliberately kept us apart. Why? So I wouldn't find out what she was doing. If we saw each other regularly, if we talked more often, I would have known you weren't getting the things I sent. But she controlled our communication. She answered your calls, told me you were busy. She answered my calls, told you I was working. She manufactured distance between us so she could keep stealing. I started remembering specific instances. Times I had called, and Sophia answered promising Brian would call back. He often did, but hours or even days later. Times Brian tried to visit, but Sophia always had a reason why it wasn't convenient. She had been building a wall between us, brick by brick, lie by lie. Brian, what are you going to do? I'm going to confront her. I'm going to end this marriage. But first I need proof. Ironclad proof that she can't talk her way out of. What kind of proof? I have an idea, Mom, but I need you to trust me. The next day, Brian called Sophia into his office at home. I wasn't there, but he told me everything afterward. Honey, he said, his voice carefully neutral. I feel terrible about the car situation. I want to make it up to Mom. Sophia had looked up warily. How? I want to give her a check. $10,000 in cash. I want you to drive to Portland and hand it to her personally. I need to know she gets it this time." Sophia's eyes had widened. "Why don't you just do a wire transfer?" "Because I don't trust the system anymore after what happened with the car. I need you to physically hand it to her. Can you do that for me? Please." She couldn't refuse without raising suspicion. "Of course. I'll go tomorrow." Brian wrote a check for $10,000 and gave it to Sophia. She promised to drive to Portland the next morning, December 29th. But Brian had a plan. He had placed a GPS tracker in Sophia's purse the night before, hidden in a small cosmetic case she always carried. He could track exactly where she went. The next morning, Brian and I waited. We watched on his phone as the GPS signal showed Sophia leaving their house, but she didn't drive south toward Portland. She drove into downtown Seattle. "She's going to a bank," Brian said, his voice tight. We got in Brian's car and drove to the bank. We parked across the street and waited. Through the large glass windows, we could see Sophia standing at a teller counter. We watched as she filled out a deposit slip, signed the check, and handed it to the teller. The check that was supposed to be for me. She was depositing it into her own account. Brian's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. "I can't believe I'm seeing this." We waited for her to finish. When Sophia walked out of the bank, she froze when she saw us standing by Brian's car. The color drained from her face. "Brian, I was just depositing my mother's check into your account." Brian's voice was ice cold. "No, I was going to transfer it to her later. I just needed to deposit it first because—" "Stop lying." Brian's words cut like a knife. "I saw everything through the window. You endorsed the check. You deposited it into your account, just like you've been doing for 3 years. Sophia's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I stepped forward. My voice was calmer than I felt. "Sophia, where's the car?" She looked down at the ground. "The white Lexus that Brian bought for me. Where is it?" Silence. "It's at 742 Maple Street, isn't it? At your mother's house?" Sophia's head snapped up, shock written across her face. "How did you know?" "So it's true," Brian said. "You gave my mother's car to your mother." Tears started rolling down Sophia's cheeks. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "We're not doing this here," Brian said. "Get in the car. We're going home." The drive back to Brian's house was silent except for Sophia's quiet crying in the back seat. Once inside, Brian made her sit down in the living room. I sat across from her, and Brian stood, his arms crossed. "I want the truth," Brian said. "All of it. How long has this been going on?" 3 years, Sophia whispered. "What did you take?" "Everything you tried to send to your mother. The money, the gifts." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Why?" Sophia took a shaky breath and began to explain. Her family was in debt. Her father had made bad investments and lost most of their savings. Her mother was struggling. Her younger sister had lost her job and was living at home again. They needed help. "I saw how much you were sending to your mother," Sophia said, looking at Brian. "And I thought, she's retired, she has enough. She has her pension, her house is paid off. My family needed it more. I thought it would just be temporary, just until they got back on their feet." "But it wasn't temporary," Brian said. "No. Every time I tried to stop, something else would come up. My parents needed more. My sister needed more. And you never questioned it, so I kept going. I told myself your mother was fine, that she didn't need those things anyway." "You had no right to make that decision," I said quietly. Sophia looked at me, her eyes pleading. I know, and I'm so sorry. I was going to tell Brian eventually. I was going to pay it all back. I swear. But you didn't, Brian said. You kept lying. You kept taking. And you kept me away from my mother so I wouldn't find out. Sophia's face crumpled. I was scared. I was scared you'd leave me if you found out. So I made sure you didn't see each other too often. I made sure you thought she was happy that she was getting everything she needed. Brian turned away from her, his hands clenched at his sides. When he turned back, his face was composed but cold. Get out. What? Get out of my house, now. Pack a bag and leave. Brian, please. I love you. No, you don't. His voice was steady, final. You don't love me. You love my money. There's a difference. A big difference. Mrs. Thompson, please? Sophia turned to me desperately. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Can't you forgive me? I looked at this woman who had caused so much pain, and surprisingly, I didn't feel anger. I felt sadness. Sophia, I don't hate you. I actually feel sorry for you. She looked confused. What? You had a man who truly loved you. You had a beautiful life, more than most people ever dream of, and you threw it all away for money. I paused, choosing my words carefully. The money you took from me, I didn't even miss it. I'm happy with my simple life, but you took something far more valuable. You took time. Time I could have spent with my son, moments I can never get back. Those conversations we could have had, those holidays we could have celebrated together. You stole those, and that's what I can't forgive. Sophia stood there, tears streaming down her face, but I had said all I needed to say. You have until tonight to move out, Brian said. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow morning. Sophia left broken and defeated. After she was gone, Brian and I sat in the living room in silence. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, despite the heavy conversation we had just had. Brian dropped his head into his hands. Mom, I'm so sorry. I failed you. I thought I was taking care of you, but instead, I let someone steal from you for 3 years. I moved to sit beside him and pulled him into a hug. No, honey. You didn't fail me. You loved me. You thought of me. You wanted to take care of me. That's all a mother could ever ask for. But the money, the car, everything, it's just money. Just things. What matters is that you wanted to give them to me. The thought, the love behind it, that's what I'll always treasure. We sat together for a long time, mother and son finding comfort in each other's presence after 3 years of manufactured distance. The legal consequences came swift and severe. Brian hired an excellent attorney on December 30th. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank statements, delivery receipts, text messages, the GPS tracking eyewitness accounts from the bank. Sophia had no defense. Brian filed for divorce and sued Sophia for fraud and embezzlement. She tried to negotiate to ask for leniency, but Brian was immovable. Every penny, Sophia. You pay back every single penny, or I press criminal charges for theft and fraud. The choice is yours. Sophia's family didn't have the money to pay restitution. They had already spent most of what she had stolen. In the end, Diane had to put her house up for sale to repay the debt. The white Lexus was returned to Brian. Within 2 weeks, Sophia's family had scraped together the $85,000 borrowing from relatives, selling Diane's house at a loss, liquidating everything they had. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Because the theft was proven and Sophia was at fault, she received nothing in the settlement. No alimony, no share of the house, nothing. In early January, Brian brought the Lexus to my house. I stood on my front porch looking at the gleaming white SUV in my driveway and felt overwhelmed. Honey, I don't need this car. I know you don't need it, Mom, but I'm asking you to take it anyway." He took my hands in his. "It's not about the car. It's about me showing you how much I love you, how much I appreciate everything you did for me. Please, let me do this." How could I say no to that? "Okay, thank you, sweetheart." We donated my old Honda to a charity that helped single mothers. I liked the symbolism of that. A car that had served me well during my own struggles as a single mother would now help another woman in the same situation. Brian also insisted I take the $85,000 he had recovered from Sophia. "This was meant for you, Mom. It's yours." I took it, but I already knew what I was going to do with it. I kept $20,000 for emergencies for security. The remaining $65,000 I donated to establish a scholarship fund for children who had lost a parent. The Iris Thompson Memorial Scholarship would help kids like Brian kids who needed financial support to pursue their education. I named it in memory of my late husband Brian's father, who would have been so proud of the man our son had become. "Mom, you're incredible," Brian said when I told him. "You're giving away a fortune." "It's not a fortune, honey, and I want to help other children the way I helped you. That money will do more good changing lives than sitting in my bank account." The months that followed were a healing time for both of us. Brian drove down to Portland every weekend. We fell back into the easy rhythm we had lost. We cooked together, my teaching him my mother's recipes. We watched old movies. We walked through the neighborhood just talking about everything and nothing. He told me about the company, the challenges and triumphs. I told him about my volunteer work about the children I read to at the hospital. We laughed about his childhood, remembering the time he tried to give the dog a haircut and ended up with bald patches all over the poor animal. We remembered his father sharing stories and keeping his memory alive. One evening in February, we were making dinner together when Brian said, "Mom, I've been thinking. I want to move back to Portland." I nearly dropped the pot I was holding. "What?" "But your company is in Seattle." "I can work remotely, or I can open a branch here. Technology makes it possible. What's not possible is getting back the years I've already lost with you." He looked at me seriously. "You matter more than the company, Mom. You always have. I just lost sight of that for a while." "Brian, I don't want you to give up your life for me." "I'm not giving up my life. I'm choosing what matters. There's a difference." In March, Brian purchased a house in Portland just 10 minutes from mine. It wasn't a mansion. It was a modest 3-bedroom home with a nice yard and a front porch. "I want something simpler," he explained. "I got caught up in trying to prove I had made it, trying to show the world I was successful. But the only person whose opinion matters is you, and you've always been proud of me whether I had money or not." We planted a garden together that spring. Tomatoes, peppers, herbs, flowers. Working side by side in the soil, I watched my son, really watched him. He was happy in a way he hadn't been in years. The stress lines around his eyes had eased. He laughed more freely. As for Sophia, I heard through Brian that she had moved back in with her parents, what was left of her family after they had sold everything to repay the debt. Sometimes I thought about her and felt a twinge of sadness. Not anger, just sadness for a life wasted on greed, for choices that had destroyed her own happiness. Brian occasionally showed moments of grief too. He had loved her once, had believed in their marriage. "I keep wondering if there were signs I missed," he told me one day as we weeded the garden. "Maybe there were, maybe there weren't. But honey, you can't blame yourself for trusting your wife. Trust is what marriage should be built on. She's the one who betrayed that trust, not you." He nodded slowly. "I know. But it's going to be a long time before I can trust someone like that again." "That's okay. Take your time. The right person will come along when you're ready." And I believed that. Brian was young, kind, smart. He would find love again someday. But for now, he was focused on healing, on rebuilding his life on a foundation of what truly mattered. It's now early summer, and I'm sitting in my backyard watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. My garden is thriving. The tomatoes are heavy on their vines, and the roses I planted with Brian are blooming in brilliant reds and yellows. The white Lexus sits in my driveway clean and shining, though I still prefer to walk to the store when the weather's nice. Brian is coming for dinner tonight, as he does every Sunday. I can hear his car pulling up now. He walks around the side of the house, and I smile at the sight of him. He's wearing jeans and an old t-shirt, so different from the expensive suits he used to wear constantly. He looks younger, more relaxed. "Hey, Mom." He kisses my cheek and sits in the chair beside mine. "How's the garden?" "Thriving. We'll have more tomatoes than we know what to do with in a few weeks. We'll make sauce. Lots of sauce." We sit in comfortable silence watching the colors deepen in the sky. After a while, Brian speaks. "Mom, do you ever think about that Christmas, about Sophia and everything that happened?" I consider the question. Sometimes, not with anger anymore. Mostly I think about what I learned from it. "What did you learn?" "I learned that love can't be measured in dollars. You spent $85,000 trying to show me you cared, but you know what means more to me. This. You sitting here next to me, spending your Sunday evening with your old mom instead of out with friends. That's worth more than any amount of money." "You're not old." I laugh. "I'm 59, honey. That's getting there." "You're the youngest 59-year-old I know." We laugh together, and I feel that familiar warmth in my chest. This is what I had been missing during those 3 years of Sophia's deception. Not the gifts or the money, but this connection, this simple joy of being with my son. "I learned something else too," I continue. "I learned that forgiveness isn't for the person who wronged you. It's for yourself. I forgave Sophia not because she deserved it, but because I didn't want to carry anger around for the rest of my life. Anger is exhausting. Forgiveness is freedom." Brian nods slowly. "I'm working on that. Some days are easier than others." "That's all you can do. Work on it one day at a time." He reaches over and takes my hand. "I'm sorry for those years, Mom. For not seeing what was happening, for letting someone come between us." "Stop apologizing. We've both apologized enough. What matters is now, and what we do with the time we have left." "You're going to live to be 100. "Maybe, but even if I do, that's only 41 more years. Not nearly enough time with you." We sit watching the last of the sunset fade, the sky deepening to purple and then to indigo. Lightning bugs begin to blink in the garden, tiny stars in the gathering darkness. A few weeks ago, Brian told me he's been seeing someone new. Her name is Jessica, and she's a teacher at a local elementary school. He's taking it slow, being cautious, but I can see the light returning to his eyes when he talks about her. I'm happy for him. He deserves love, real love, the kind built on honesty and trust. "When are you going to bring Jessica over for dinner?" I ask. "Soon. I want to make sure it's serious first. I don't want to introduce you to someone who might not stick around." "I understand. But honey, don't be so cautious that you miss out on happiness. What Sophia did was terrible, but not everyone is like her. There are good people in the world, genuine people." "I know. I just need to learn to trust my judgment again." "You will. Give yourself time." Inside, I've prepared Brian's favorite meal pot roast with potatoes and carrots, the same meal I used to make for him when he was growing up. The recipe came from my mother, and someday I'll teach it to Brian so he can pass it on to his own children if he decides to have them. We go inside, and Brian helps me set the table. It's a small kitchen table, nothing like the grand dining table at his old house in Seattle. But it's ours, and it's perfect. As we eat, we talk about everything. His company, which is doing well even with him working remotely. My volunteer work at the hospital. The book club I joined. The hiking trip he's planning for next month. You should come with me, Mom. It's not a hard trail. Maybe I will. It's been years since I've been hiking. Then it's settled. I'll pick you up at 8. After dinner, we wash dishes together, him washing me drying, just like when he was a little boy, assigned chores. He tells me about a funny thing that happened at work, and I tell him about the 4-year-old at the hospital who insisted I was a princess because I brought her a book about princesses. When it's time for him to leave, he hugs me tight. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. Drive safe. I stand on the porch and wave as he drives away. Then I go back inside, make myself a cup of tea, and sit in my favorite chair with a book. My life is simple. I don't have a mansion, or expensive jewelry, or a closet full of designer clothes. I drive a car that's worth more than I ever thought I'd own, but I'm just as happy taking walks. I have enough money in the bank now for security, but I still clip coupons and shop sales. But I'm rich in the ways that matter. I have a son who loves me and makes time for me. I have good friends. I have my health. I have purpose through my volunteer work. I have this cozy little house filled with memories. They say you can't put a price on love, and they're right. Because love, real love, is worth everything. And it costs nothing at all. Sometimes the greatest gifts come not in boxes or envelopes, but in moments. In Sunday dinners and garden work. In phone calls just to say hello. In laughter shared over old stories. In the comfort of knowing someone cares, truly cares not about what they can get from you, but simply about you. I look around my small living room at the photographs covering the walls. Brian at every age, from a tiny baby to the man he is now. My late husband, forever young in those faded pictures. My friends, my life captured in these frames. And I realize that Sophia actually gave me a gift, though she never intended to. Her betrayal brought my son back to me. It stripped away the pretense and the distance. It forced us to remember what really mattered. In trying to steal from me, she reminded me of what I truly had, and that's something no one can ever take away. So where are you watching from? Have you ever had someone betray your trust? How did you find the strength to forgive? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories about life, love, and the lessons we learn along the way. Share this with someone who needs to hear that forgiveness is possible, that healing takes time, but it does happen. Thank you for listening to my story. May you always remember that the most precious gifts in life aren't things but people, and that love given freely is the only kind worth having. God bless you all, and may you find peace in your own journey of forgiveness and healing.